good, everybody? Welcome to the Pull Up Show. I'm your host, Mr. BJ Matthews, aka B Jizzle. Before we get started, follow us on the YouTube page, the Pull Up Basketball Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. All my YouTube videos, hit that like button. Y'all come in here, hit the share, subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Hit that $ symbol, Cash App, $ Slickrick 1990 is our Cash App. $ Slickrick 1990 is our Cash App. If you guys do not have our Cash App, make sure you guys continuously follow us on all social media platforms and be able to show your love to us. But let's get it popping. All right, so it's been a few weeks, man. Actually, it's been a couple weeks, about 2 weeks since we've been on here, man. Since I did a video, it's been about almost a month since we did a live. You know what I'm saying? So has it been a month? No, it's been about 2-3 weeks again. But I'm saying like I've been kind of MIA with y'all because I've just been enjoying my time away, and what I've been doing a lot is more so writing articles. So if you guys have not seen, I'm actually doing articles with the Sporting Tribune. If y'all don't know what that is, y'all can go ahead and check that out. The Sporting Tribune, TRIBUNE is Tribune, and then Sporting, and then y'all can check out my articles. I'll be writing for the Clippers on there, taking my time and my energy doing that. So I've been taking a break from doing videos, but I want to touch on something. It's a subject that seems to be going around quite frequently. And it's pertaining to, something that we revisited during this. All right, so right now we got a video we'll talk about, and it's actually pertaining to no more than Mr. Brian Shaw, who is the assistant coach currently of the LA Clippers. And based off some of the discussions that we've had throughout the year, if y'all don't know, I was on Dime Dropper's show a couple nights ago, actually. Was that Wednesday night? I was on the show. It released Thursday. If y'all didn't check out that video, go check that out, where we talked about a number of things, a number of topics, and we got a chance to really get into it. But one of the discussions we asked, has been going around about, is Brian Shaw qualified to become the Clippers' next head coach? Now, for y'all don't know, I made it very, very plain and clear that I'm off of Tyronn Lue. I think Tyronn Lue has, worn his welcome out in LA. He has not gotten the job done with the pieces that he has had. He's been in for 4 or 5 seasons, right? He's been for 5 seasons, and since then he's gotten to one conference finals appearance, which is something to be proud of, especially that it's the only conference finals appearance for the Clippers. But my biggest thing with this is that happened back in 2021, and since then he has not updated his resume. And when you talk about this job market, which coaching is a job, it may not be a civilian job, but it is a job where you're having to be a performer and be performance. He has not updated what he has done in the last 3 seasons. Now, people may go back to injuries and say, well, Kawhi Leonard hasn't been healthy, their team hasn't been healthy, yada yada yada. Well, that threw out the window this year, because you had a fully healthy Clipper team, which Kawhi Leonard was the best player on the court. He averaged 25 points per game. He had 7.6 rebounds. He had 4.7 assists off of 53, 30-something, high 30s, and then I think 78 free throw percentage. He was effective on the defensive side of the basketball. He led both teams in scoring. So you had a guy who was the best player out there pretty much carrying you, right? 63 true shooting percentage from the field, right? So you had a guy that really was consistent, and not only consistent, but affected both things of the ball. I don't want to get too much into this, but back to the whole Kawhi Leonard, he should have did more. When people keep saying Kawhi Leonard should have been doing more, this is why I keep telling y'all, people raising the bar. You don't say, oh, he had 25 points per game and say, oh, that's it. That's all he averaged was 25 points per game. Go and look throughout the playoffs this year. A lot of these teams, 25 points per game is their first star, right? Anything over 25 and up, you're your first option. But here's the kicker. A lot of those guys are just affecting one side of the basketball. They're exerting one side of the basketball with energy. I keep telling people this. It's easier for a guy who can score 25 to 30 points without having to worry about the defensive side of the ball, having to worry about rebounding the ball and banging as a power forward, and while being consistent. if you look through the NBA, there is not many elite two-way players left in the game. And when I say elite two-way players, it's just what y'all see on the screen. A guy can give me 25 points per game and score on all three levels. I'm gonna say a wing. There's not too many two-way wings at this level who can score 25, 30 points per game while being very good on the defensive end of the basketball. Right? Kawhi Leonard had to guard Michael Porter Jr. as his primary option, but he also went on to Aaron Gordon, right? He also went on Jamal Murray because you had guys on the court who could not hold their man. See, we live in an era right now that everybody wants to switch everything. When I come from is that you get through the screen and you guard your man. If you can't guard your man, get off the court. Same thing Kawhi said. If he can't guard, why is he in the game? It may not make sense to the common the modern day era, but it makes very, very sense to me. If you can't guard your man, you shouldn't be out on the court because what you're doing is you're putting the rest of your teammates in a disadvantage. So when you got guys like, I'm not gonna even go disrespectful, but I'm just gonna say when you got guys like James Harden, Norman Powell in that backcourt who's having a hard time dealing with the Nuggets players as far as Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook, and Michael Porter Jr. Because those are three of the guys that have the advantage over Norman Powell and James Harden. That puts more pressure on guys like Kawhi Leonard, Christopher Dunn, and Ivica Zubac to do what they have to do. So why did I bring all this up? I said because Tyronn Lue he had his best player on the court and he was fully healthy and he was playing at a high level, closing the season out. So you had all those pieces right beside you and you still came up short. You had a fully healthy Clipper team. And based off of the reason why they lost that momentum was in game 4. We can sit up here all day and say James Harden should have boxed out, which he should have. We could have said that Norman Powell should have done a better job of, boxing out, which he should have. That was the two guys by the basket when Aaron Gordon hit that tip dunk. But we can also say why Tyronn Lue refuses to play size on the court. Why guys like Ben Simmons wasn't on the court to be able to box out? Well, we might say, because Ben didn't play the whole game, and that's part of the problem. I still don't understand. Well, I do understand. But it was a mistake benching Ben Simmons in the first place. It was a huge mistake. It was a huge mistake benching Amir Coffey because everybody says the problem, but they don't give the solution. Oh, we didn't have enough spacing to shoot the three-point shot. Well, the guy on the screen shot 40+% from the three this year, 47% from the field, 91% from the line. He was our best free throw shooter this year and as well as one of our best three-point shooters. And I'm sick and tired of hearing this whole he don't defend. Look, you got guys on this team that don't defend as it is, that's getting playing time. James Harden and Powell, Bogdanovich, all three of these guys can't defend. And Amir Coffey is a willing defender. The problem is that you have this man playing the 4 position against guys who are bigger than him and taller than him. So, yes, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge when he's having to guard guys like Kevin Durant and guard guys like, who have more size. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the first few games against Phoenix. Amir Coffey had Kevin Durant a lot of those times. So if you're talking about players at that ilk or that size or, at that position, yeah, he's going to have some trouble. But as far as the 2 and 3 position, Amir Coffey pretty much did his job. No one mentioned this whole he can't guard at this first part of the season. All of a sudden, when it's time to re-up on a contract, here comes the excuse, oh, well, it's because he doesn't play. He's getting targeted on defense. Well, Bogdanovich it should be a definition. It should have his picture in it with getting targeted. But the thing about Bogey is he was even in a slump for something that we brought him over here was to shoot. He was in a slump in himself towards a few games at the end of the season. But he just somehow just jumped the line and started playing over one of our guys that's been here for 3-4 seasons, who's been here when we had our best players out and actually was able to be very productive. People keep using that Maverick series last year. The Maverick series, everybody struggled. Everyone, every last one of them. So when your stars struggle, most likely your role players are going to struggle. But I digress. Tyronn Lue's time to me is up. I don't like his coaching philosophies. I think he values small ball entirely too much. I think he has pretty much lessened players' value by benching them for no reason. You got Terrence Mann. You got Robert Covington. You got Bones Hyland. You got Musa Diabate. You got Kai Jones. You have Russell Westbrook. And you got Amir Coffey. And you got Ben Simmons. This guy has, for whatever reason, he just benches dudes for reasons I can't even understand. Even when they playing well. And he rides his guards like James Harden, like Reggie Jackson, players like that entirely too long. So we see this season, Brian Shaw finally gets an opportunity to coach. He finally gets an opportunity to get a chance to coach. And I think he goes 4-1. Yeah. Pelicans, Heat, Grizzlies, Cavs, and I want to say the Pistons, if I'm not mistaken. He either went 3-1 or 4-1, one of the two. He had a winning record, a very good record. So that 2-week stretch when Tyronn Lue threw his back out, which ain't never happened in his 5-year coaching tenure. Now the echo is, can Brian Shaw come in and coach the Clippers? That was the whole, talking point. Is he able to coach the Clippers? Now there's echoes from a lot of the Clipper. I'm just gonna say it: Dime, Adam, Law, and probably some other people that I ain't even mentioned. I ain't even asked or heard from. They have said that Brian Shaw, they're not really zoning on Brian Shaw being the coach. They think Tyronn Lue should stay. First off, I totally disagree with Tyronn Lue staying, because my thing is, what is going to change from this year to last year? Your coaching philosophies, in my personal opinion, are why Tyronn Lue is never going to get this team over the hump. And I feel Tyronn Lue is getting more of the Doc Rivers treatment year by year. You live off of one championship for almost 10 years ago, and that means you get a lifetime grandfather clause as a coach. No matter how many times you lose, no matter how many times you get put out, no matter how many times, you have a grandfather clause. For y'all don't remember when Doc Rivers, the first year they got Kawhi Paul George in that bubble, and they lost the way they did in embarrassing fashion, the same way the Clippers lost in embarrassing fashion against the Denver Nuggets. They shipped him out of here. And when I say that, I'm talking about Steve Ballmer. They shipped him out of here because Steve Ballmer was embarrassed, like this picture right here. He flew all those fans out just for him to get blown out like that. So my personal opinion is this: Tyronn Lue will be on the hot seat this year. If he comes out and the team starts struggling, don't be surprised if they pull a Taylor Jenkins or a Mike Brown or a Michael Malone. Because, see, those guys I named, let me tell you something that they did. I don't mean to put this too much on Ty Lue, but I'm putting the picture out of why he needs to be let go, and Tom Thibodeau as well. People keep talking about Tyronn Lue in the regular season has done this, that, and the other. They got to look at and see what he has really done in the regular season. And I wrote an article about this. If you look at his tenure with the Clippers, his 5-year tenure with the Clippers, I'm gonna pull this up real quick. This is his record with the Clippers right here. You got 5 seasons from 2019, 2020. Actually, no, 2020, 2021. We're gonna start with him as the head coach. 2020, 2021, all the way down to 24, 2025. Right? 47 and 25, 42 and 40, 44 and 38, 51, 32, and 50 and 32. Now, I want you to look at something really closely. At 50 and 32, 4 of those wins belong to Brian Shaw, but they go under Tyronn Lue's coaching record. So you have to ask yourself, would they have beaten the Cavs? Would they have beaten the Pistons? Would they have beaten even the Heat if it was Tyronn Lue coaching instead of Brian Shaw? Because don't get it twisted. We've had seasons where the Clippers are losing to bad teams, and then nobody could figure it out. Last year. So much like people say, well, Tyronn Lue had a winning record this season. That's true. But 2021 to all the way to this point, one thing that those coaches I named, Mike Brown, Taylor Jenkins, Michael Malone, and Tom Thibodeau, that has done that Tyronn Lue has not done, is they've been top 3 seeds. They've been top 3 seeds in both their conferences. Tyronn Lue has never been a top 3 seed since he's been a coach for the Clippers. With all the talent, you would think he's been a top 3 seed. Even years where Kawhi and Paul George played a great amount of games together, he still couldn't get him as a top 3 seed. Even last year in 23, 2024, you had Kawhi play 68 games. You had PG play 74. You had Harden play 72. There was a stretch, and I don't think people remember, there was a stretch where the Clippers were losing games left from right, and people couldn't figure it out why. All that talent on the court, you're losing games. People don't bring this stuff up. They just look at say, well, he did well for the regular season. If you're going to be really honest, Tyronn Lue hasn't been proven to be a good coach since 2022. He hasn't really shown himself to be a good coach since that year. That was 3 seasons ago. Why is that? Because you had your best players out for the chunk of the season and one guy out for the whole season. And in the playoffs, your record is not a winning record. Now again, your star player has been out, but this is the year I seen his coaching methods, even with his star players there, hold the team back. And I'm like, at that point, I don't need to see nothing else. I don't need to see no more. He's just not able to get it done. People point at that 2016 championship. Look, the only way that I'm saying they have to overcome Tyronn Lue's bad coaching to win, and it should not be like that. That's showing me that he's not a top level coach. But you keep hearing that on the ESPN media screens. He's top 5 this, top 5 that. But what we see is that the players have to overcome his bad coaching. Even the year they went to the conference finals against the Mavericks, it took 2 games for him to adjust. And it's something else I'm sick and tired of hearing, that he's Mr. Adjuster. He adjusts after the game, not during the game. But you know somebody that adjusts just during the game and not after the game? Brian Shaw. He did it up against the Cleveland Cavaliers, that game where Chris Dunn was having a bad shooting first half, and he subbed in Bogdan Bogdanovic for spacing. and they blew the doors open in the second half. He valued, in my personal opinion, Kawhi Leonard as the focal point of the offense. That game where Kawhi Leonard got that game-winning. Okay, no, not the Pistons, the Kings. That game when Kawhi got that game-winning layup or game-winning push shot. Brian Shaw said we're rolling with our best player. And that's my mindset. See, you guys got to remember Brian Shaw where he started at. He didn't start off with the Denver Nuggets. He started off under Phil Jackson, the Los Angeles Lakers. Let me show y'all something real quick because we don't go deep into this. The whole notion is that Brian Shaw was struggling with the Denver Nuggets. Brian Shaw was doing this. Brian Shaw was doing that. He wasn't doing much. First off, you got to look at what he did before he even went to the Nuggets. And you got to also look at the team he had with the Nuggets. So B. Shaw, this is going to be his coaching record right here. This is his coaching resume. As an assistant coach, starting off, and then a head coach. All them years with the Lakers from 2004 to 2012. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 years he's been an assistant coach, right? He spent 1 year in Indiana as well. But when he's with the Lakers, all them championships, that three-peat, they went to the finals with Kobe and Pau Gasol. Brian Shaw was the assistant head coach, right next to Phil Jackson. I don't know if people remember this. Now people can say, well, you know, what do you? Well, he had Kobe Bryant, BJ. What you mean? Okay, that's fair, but it's funny that people say that now, but people always talk about how Kobe was selfish and, you know, you couldn't win with Kobe all the time. Like, you know, he held his teammates back, but now all of a sudden we want to use that as an excuse for Brian Shaw. And I get it. Assistant coaches, a lot of people don't know assistant coaches really are the ones that pull the strings over head coaches. The guys that are running the practices, the guys that are talking to the players on the bench, because the head coach is busy being the figurehead. Even with Brian Shaw, that triangle offense wasn't his idea. It was Tex Winter's idea, who was his assistant as well in Chicago. So people give the assistant coach a head time. Well, damn, the assistant coach for the Denver Nuggets is the guy who came in and coached like the head coach. And it was a smooth transition to the point where now he's going to be the actual head coach coming in. And that's kind of how similar the Clippers are right now. You know, all this talk about, well, Brian Shaw only coached for 5 games for the Clippers. Well, how are he doing the 5 games? He went 4-1. And something else I'm going to say. I don't believe in coincidences in life. Things happen for me, they happen for a reason. No one would have knew how good Brian Shaw is if they didn't get that 5-game stretch. So when you get a taste of it and he actually did what he's supposed to do, and you watch his coaching philosophies and how he draws the offense up and how he has players in positions to be successful, you said, okay, this is real coaching. Well, you need a larger sample size. Okay, let's talk about this larger sample size. The Lakers, he got 2 championships as an assistant coach, multiple playoff appearances with Phil Jackson. Okay, you don't want to use that. Let's go to the next year with the Indiana Pacers in 2011, 2012. He was a coach for the Indiana Pacers under Frank Vogel. That was the year they went to the playoffs against the Miami Heat. That was the year before they went to the playoffs against the Miami Heat. When they had Danny Granger, when they had Roy Hibbert, when they had players of that ilk. Y'all may not know those players, but I do. And they got to the conference semifinals. See, part of the thing is people need to understand is in order for you to get a head coaching job, it's not easy getting a head coach. I hope people understand that. It's not easy getting a head coaching job. It's not. Getting a head coaching job means you have paid your dues and you worked your way up more times than not. Now you got people who have relationships like JJ Redick who gets in because of who he knows. But just like any other thing, any type of profession, you got to work your way up. And when you guys pay their dues and have multiple years as assistant coaches or player development coaches or the coordinator of the team, video coordinator, whatever, and you finally get to a head coach, that means more times than not they know what they're doing. So he finally gets a head coaching job based off of him having multiple years as an assistant coach, helping and understanding what being around winning basketball means. So he gets to be with Denver Nuggets. Now, this is where this whole, Brian Shaw didn't do what he was supposed to do with. I'm going to explain something to y'all really quickly. This is a players' league. Yes, it's about coaching, but this is a players' league. If you don't have the players adequate to win, you're not going to be able to come out and win and have much success. You're just not. So, Brian Shaw in 2013, 2014, as y'all come here, make sure y'all smash that like button. Brian Shaw was the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. He finally gets his opportunity to be the coach. All right, he has a few years of success with the Lakers and 1 year with the Indiana Pacers, and it's good enough to get him a head coaching job. That right there should tell you he was doing his job very well at a high level, because it's only at that time it's only like 26 coaching jobs. There's 30 teams in the league right now. So he had 2 years in Denver. His first year he was 36-46. Right? He was 36-46 his first year. The first year with the Nuggets, he's 36-46. Now, that means he was 11th in the standings. Right? Let me go ahead and I'm gonna actually show y'all the standings that year. We gonna iron all this stuff out. So the 2013-2014 year with the Denver Nuggets, and that year in the standings, this is what happened. So you had the Spurs, the Thunder, the Clippers, the Rockets, the Trailblazers, the Warriors, Grizzlies, the Mavericks, the Suns, T-Wolves, and then the Denver Nuggets. And this is what goes to having context means. You got to look at the team he had and the teams he was going up against. So let's go back to the roster. I want y'all to snapshot this. All those teams in the West, the Wild Wild West. Look at the teams that he had as far as his roster. Right? His roster right here. If y'all hear any noise in the background, y'all have to forgive me for that. But this is the roster he had his first year with the Denver Nuggets. Darrell Arthur, Aaron Brooks, Wilson Chandler, Kenneth Faried, Evan Fournier, Randy Foye, Jordan Hamilton, J.J. Hickson, Tyler Lawson, JaVale McGee, Andre Miller, Quincy Miller, Timothy Mozgov, Anthony Randolph, Nate Robinson, and Jan Vensley. That is his roster right there. Now, a lot of y'all who have just been watching basketball for like the last, 6-7 years, don't know any of these players. And that's okay, because we have statistics to back up what type of players they were. Now, for the ones that do know who these players are, I want you to be completely honest. Who is on this team that's looked at as an all-star? If you look at this right side right here, it shows you which of these players were up for awards. And the only person that's up for award is Timothy Mozgov, was a six man of the year, and he's ranked number 13. this year. So you had no NBA, all NBA team players. You had no all-stars. You had no superstars. You had no defensive players of the year candidates. You had no one on the team that had any awards. So that tells me you didn't have really a roster able to compete with the top talent. You had a lot of good role players. Tyronn Lawson, very good role player, and he actually was a good starting point guard. Average. Aaron Brooks, average. Randy Foye, average. Ty Lawson averaged 17 points that year. That's the highest. You had Nate Robinson, good player, average. Andre Miller, 5.9 points per game. He was 37 years old, the oldest man on the team. That's the only player I can see that could have really made a difference if he was, somewhat in his prime. But the rest of these guys, what you're looking at, Kenneth Faried, Aaron Brooks, who was good with the Rockets years before, but he was on the older side of his career as well. You had basically a lot of role players. And this is what Brian Shaw had to deal with that year. Y'all want to talk about Tyronn Lue's roster? He don't have this, he don't have that. Is that roster competing up against any of the top teams that I have in the standings up? I'm about to put up again right now so y'all can see for yourself. Is he beating any of those top teams? The Spurs, that's the year that they went to the finals. They had Tim Duncan, they had Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and they had a young Kawhi Leonard who won the finals MVP that year. They're not beating that team, right? Are they going to beat the OKC Thunder with Russ, Kevin Durant? Just those two names alone beat the Spurs 2 out of 3 times and their time facing each other from 2012 to 2016. So if I just put the Spurs as had a better season record and the Thunder prove they can beat them just with Russ and KD, we don't need to go any further. The Clippers, that Clipper team, Lob City with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, which is was a really good regular season team year by year. That's Chris Paul in his prime. Hell, his peak. You have Blake Griffin at his prime, peak. You had Jamal Crawford. You had all the talent on that Clipper team. You had star power. The Rockets, they were 54-28 that year. You had the Trailblazers, who was a great regular season team with Dame Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge. You had the Warriors, who a year later went to the finals. That's when Steph Curry and you had Klay Thompson. They didn't have Draymond Green yet, but they still had an adequate team. The Memphis Grizzlies, 50-32. The Dallas Mavericks, 49-33, 48-34. So you weren't even making the playoffs unless you had close to 50. You weren't even making the playoffs unless you had about 50 wins. And I don't know what team Denver was going to beat with that roster, with no all-stars, with no all-NBA team players, with no championship experience. A lot of just role players who are trying to find their way through the NBA. That roster resembled a roster that's trying to find guys to get another big contract. No Carmelo Anthony, no Kenyon Martin, no Chauncey Billups, not even Allen Iverson, the older Allen Iverson. No one on that team can give you 25 plus points. Hell, it couldn't even give you 20 points. And then the next year, Brian Shaw had pretty much the same roster. Actually, a roster that was worse. They went 30-52 that year. So because of that and because of the cards that were dealt to him, You're looking at a guy that really didn't have the opportunity to have a success. You had a few changes. You had a Jusuf Nurkic, who was a rookie. Nobody was looking for him. Danilo Gallinari was probably their best, second best player behind Ty Lawson that year. You had Aaron Aflalo, who's pretty good, experienced vet. Darrell Arthur, I played against him. He from Dallas. I played against him in high school. So you didn't really have an opportunity again. And looking at this again, nobody on this team had any awards. And it's even worse this year. The highest guy averaged 15 points a game. Yeah, Aaron Aflalo averaging 14.5, Wilson Chandler averaging 13.9, Kenneth Faried averaging 12.6. And then Jusuf Nurkic, the only person up for Rookie of the Year as a sixth person. You got nobody on this team that can really move the needle. So for anybody that's saying that Brian Shaw couldn't get it done, Brian Shaw didn't have a good enough coaching resume. Look at the team that he had around him, man. And this ain't no disrespect, but these are the stars on the squad: Ty Lawson, Randy Foye, Wilson Chandler, Kenneth Faried, Danilo Gallinari, Timothy Mozgov. These are the starters on the team. These are some of your best rotational players. What team in the West are they going to beat with that squad? It's amazing, to be honest with you, that he got 36 wins out of this team. I'm not being disrespectful, but coach can only coach, and this proves to me how good of a coach he is, because he was able to do that with lesser valuable players. But you get a Kawhi Leonard with him, you get a James Harden with him, you get a better Ivica Zubac. Nobody on this team was better than those guys. You let him get with Kobe and Shaq as the assistant coach next to Phil Jackson, or Kobe and Pau Gasol next to Phil Jackson. Championships. Pacers, assistant with the Pacers. Playoffs. Second round. They lose to LeBron. They made the playoffs. So you have when you bring some adequate pieces around a good coach, then you see results. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna let y'all go after this. A good coach is proven not when he has everything, it's when he doesn't have much to offer. I'm talking about players. When a coach with all the talent, it's easy to coach that. You really don't have to coach, just roll the ball out and let them play. And that's what Tyronn Lue, to me, does now. See, there was a time that Tyronn Lue really actually, to me, put time into coaching. I think those first 2 seasons where you're trying to prove himself. See, it's easier to prove yourself when you just got a new job. But as time goes on, you can get what they call complacent. And I feel like that's what Tyronn Lue either got complacent or he's gotten tired of having to deal with the what ifs and injuries. I understand that. I get that. I think personally, the last 2-3 seasons, Tyronn Lue has grown. He has grown tired of having to deal with injuries to his best players. So I feel for him. That's why we never really questioned him. But this year, and what I've seen, even with his best talent throughout the regular season, there's too many holes in his coaching philosophy that a top level coach just does not do. I'm talking about substitutions. I'm talking about drawing up certain schemes, valuing certain guys over others, favoritism, all that stuff, man. Not playing the best players. That doesn't equal a great coach. Stubborn to a fault. You know, people look at Brian Shaw, he's just a shiny new toy. Okay. Well, David Adelman is a shiny new toy, and he came in and he did what he's supposed to do. See, a lot of this, again, it depends on basically what you value. I'm going to keep going back to the Denver Nuggets because they did things the right way. The Denver Nuggets made a decision to get rid of Mike Malone and Calvin Booth. They did not mess around. And that's the problem with the Clippers. They're still trying to debate if they're going to make a move. They have to make a real decision at some point and just say, you know what? We may have a relationship with the head coach and assistant and the general manager, Lawrence Frank and Ty Lue. But Steve Ballmer has to make a decision just like Kroenke did for the Nuggets, the owner for the Nuggets, and say, look, are we trying to win a championship or are we just trying to just be, you know, a team that's just out there? Simple question. Are you trying to win a championship? Or are you trying to just be competitive, even, or just be relevant? Trying to have a, you know, beautiful arena. When I look at Tyronn Lue now, I think he has gotten comfortable being out here in LA. I think that the injury bug has really just been, you know, something he has a hard time getting over as far as his star players. And I think he's grown tired of it. Fine. Get somebody who's already self-motivated. Get somebody who's ready to, you know, coach. Because nobody wants to continuously deal with a losing franchise like this. All right, where was I? But L. Frank and T. Lue, man, I like I said on Dime Dropper Show, man. Like, I don't think I mentioned L. Frank, but I mentioned T. Lue. T. Lue, James Harden, Lawrence Frank. To me, they all need to go for numerous amount of reasons. If you guys need to, you know, I'm probably gonna do another video on just Lawrence Frank. I've done one on Ty Lue. I've done one on uh Tyronn Lue, James Harden. I think it's time for Lawrence Frank to get his humble pie as well because see, the thing about me is I don't just look at the main point and just say that's it. I go deep into like the details and all the sides of everything and try to make the best splash because you know, if everybody believing that Brian Shaw isn't qualified, after all they gotta do is look at what Denver just did. That's the smooth transition you're supposed to do. You want to have a guy who's in house rather than having to say, well, who are we gonna bring in? That's been the discussion, like who are we gonna bring in for Tyronn Lue, the guy on the screen. And you may say, well, I'm not so sure because of a short sample size. How many games did David Adelman coach for Mike Malone? Nobody knew who David Adelman was. I don't know if he took any coaching, you know, had any games where he coached for Mike Malone, but nobody was really fond of. You had people for the Clippers laughing, saying that's the water boy, and look how he looks. He outcoached our head coach, and that's just the bottom line. How did he outcoach Tyronn Lue? First off, how he trusted his guys. He put his guys in better positions, Russell Westbrook included. See, when you have a coach that believes in you, just like anything in life, we have a coach that believes in you and is not going to take you out after one mistake or allow you to be yourself, especially a top 75 player like Russell Westbrook. It's amazing that he has to beg for minutes when he's going to go down as one of the greatest players of all time. The result that you got was a player that helped the Nuggets win 2 games, actually 3 games, game 1, game 5, and game 7. Without Russell Westbrook, the Nuggets do not win that series. Nikola Jokic was held under control by Viska Zubac. Jamal Murray had one great splash game, which was game 5. Aaron Gordon really was the role players that won games. Aaron Gordon helped save their season in game 4, as well as he held his own with his matchup. And then Russell Westbrook and Christian Braun, after game 4, made it tough for James Harden in games 5 and game 7. So that's how Alderman outcoached Tyronn Lue. If that was Tyronn Lue, he would have benched Russell Westbrook, and then people would say he was trash like he did last year. There's other ways to use a player other than just making them trying to stay on the corner, be an off-ball shooter. When you take that away from a player who's known to be a exciting two-way point guard like Russell Westbrook, yes, he's a two-way point guard. You can't shortchange that. You gotta live with the mistakes because you're gonna get something to come out of it. Because a lot of those players for the Clippers just haven't been in these situations, and it showed. A lot of them have not been in situations like that. So when you get a player like Christopher Dunn, or get a player like Bogdan Bogdanovic, or get a player like Derrick Jones Jr., who have good stretches, but they're not dependent on like throughout the entirety of the series. Even Norman Powell. Oh, people say, "Well, what happened? What? Why? Why?" Well, it's not that they're not good; it's the fact they haven't been in these situations. So, anyway, I'm all for B. Shaw coming to head coach because my thing is, it's really nothing for the Clippers to lose. They're not going to, unless they make another move. The roster to me is not good enough to compete for a championship. But again, you might need to use this year to really. I think the next following year will be the year that you can possibly look to get a championship. But that's why I say with B. Shaw, like, give him a chance to get a full season or even half a season, because you got all these other coaches that are getting fired who have done more. Frank Vogel, had a first seed, and with the Lakers with a championship. Monty Williams had a first seed or a top 3 seed, I think 2 years in a row with the Suns. 2 years in a row in 2021 and 2022. They were a second seed, and then they were a first seed. That's regular season dominance. So Tyronn Lue has been good, but there's other coaches who've done more in the regular season and the playoffs who've been getting cut short. The Clippers will be fine. But until next time, pull up a seat, pull up a chair, pull it out. Peace. Out of here like swimwear.